The chizuk, the encouragement, flowed both ways on my visit. Whatever strength we were able to offer Israelis was more than matched by the inspiration that they gave us, certainly in the perseverance we witnessed already this night, but also in the way everyone has come together, contributing whatever time and talent they can. In every community there is a chamal, a cheder milchama, a war room, where volunteers coordinate their efforts. One organization, no stranger to helping communities recover from disaster, is IsraAid, which Temple Emanu-El has been proud to support for several years now. Founded in 2001 as a coalition of Israeli groups working in disaster relief and international development, IsraAid has grown into an independent NGO and the largest humanitarian aid organization in Israel. From earthquakes and hurricanes to epidemics and forced displacement, IsraAid has been at the forefront of responding to major humanitarian crises worldwide, working in more than 50 countries. Yotam Polizer is its indefatigable CEO. Earlier this year, he was named the 2023 recipient of the Charles Bronfman Prize, the award annually presented to a humanitarian whose work, informed by Jewish values, has significantly impacted the world. Yotam first joined IsraAid as a volunteer in 2011, leading the organization's relief mission to Japan after the earthquake that year and the tsunami that left 20,000 people dead. He's also led emergency missions to the Philippines, Sierra Leone, Nepal, Greece, and Germany. In 2021, he led the complex evacuation of 205 vulnerable refugees from Afghanistan after the Taliban's takeover of the country. In 2020, IsraAid launched a truly global emergency response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and since 2022, has been engaged in humanitarian relief in Ukraine. And so when the tragedy of October 7th occurred, IsraAid did what it always does. It figured out where help was most needed and mobilized to provide it. There are so many inspiring stories that have come out of this dark time. IsraAid's is one of them. When our service concludes here, Yotam will be addressing 200 young professionals. But now we are privileged to have him address us. Would you please welcome a true hero, Yotam Polizer.
Shabbat Shalom. It does feel like home here. I was here a few years ago, and I'm sure you all agree with me that what we all need right now, more than anything else, is support group. So I see you as my support group tonight, and I hope we can support each other. So as Rabbi Davidson mentioned, I've seen some things in my life. I arrived to Japan after 4 days after the tsunami in 2011, and there was still a world panic because of the nuclear reactor from Fukushima. So I was a bit stressed, to say the least, but now I'm so much more anxious. In 2014, I led our mission in the Ebola outbreak in Sierra Leone, and I was there for almost a year. And when I first arrived to Sierra Leone, the survival rate from Ebola was 50%. So that was quite scary. I remember every night I used to wake up, every night for the first month or so, I woke up full of sweat, which is one of the symptoms of Ebola, and I was 100% sure that I had the virus, and I measured myself and I said, well, thank God, not yet. But if I compared my feelings then to the fear and the anxiety that I fear now, it seems like a piece of cake what I felt then. Last year, around this time, I was in Bucha, in Ukraine. Bucha was ground zero for the Russian invasion to Ukraine, and that's where they found the first, unfortunately not the last, mass grave in Europe. That was heavy. As a grandson of Holocaust survivors, my mom's family is from Ukraine, my dad's family is from Hungary. You know, I could not think about our history, but still it felt distant. That wasn't us. I felt devastated, but I felt protected. Unfortunately, that's not the case right now. Perhaps the only story that I heard from my work around the world with survivors of disasters that may feel, unfortunately, a bit similar was when we worked with Yazidi survivors from Iraq who survived the ISIS genocide. One of these Yazidi survivors, her name is Nadia Morad. You may have heard of her because in 2019 she won the Nobel Peace Prize. We brought her to Israel in 2017, just before she won, and a couple of years after she was able to escape. And together with our team members and Israeli specialists, we provided trauma care and support for these Yazidi survivors. And her stories of how she saw her parents, her brothers and sisters, murdered in front of our eyes by these savages, unfortunately felt too familiar when I spent the last few days with survivors of the massacre of October 7th in Israel. So as the rabbi mentioned, the vision behind Israel was not to respond in Israel. In fact, we always like to see ourselves as the humanitarian wing of the startup nation. Our goal was to bring Israeli expertise to the world's most vulnerable community, and we did it for the last 22 years in 62 countries. Never thought that we will have to respond to one of the biggest humanitarian crises of our lifetime at home. Usually, whenever there's a crisis, it takes us about 2 hours, sometimes even less, to get on the phone with our emergency response team and to plan our response, to jump on a plane, and to arrive in a maximum 72 hours. Most recently, and I'm sure we all forgot about it, but was the earthquake in Morocco, where we sent our team. In less than 24 hours, our team was already on the ground in Morocco, providing relief. When October 7th massacre took place, it took us much longer. Yes, it was home. We could have arrived earlier, but it took us longer because we were shocked. And we were thinking about our families. We wanted to make sure that everyone is safe from our team. And only about 36 hours after the first horrific news about the massacre broke out, that our emergency response team made its way to the evacuation centers in the Dead Sea. As we speak right now, there are approximately 200,000 people who are internally displaced in Israel. Many of them are in different hotels that are now turned into temporary shelters. The city of Eilat, which in normal times, I'm sure many of you visited, it's a resort city, has now turned into one big refugee camp. There are about 50,000 residents in Eilat and more than 60,000 evacuees. The city more than doubled itself with evacuees from the communities surrounding Gaza. The area of the Dead Sea, the hotel area of the Dead Sea, hosts now 8,000 evacuees, including people from Be'eri, the place where Yarden Roman, the hero, was visiting before she was kidnapped. So our teams are on the ground, and unfortunately, and truly unfortunately, we have experience in similar situation. So very quickly, once we made it to these temporary shelters, we opened what we call child-safe spaces. And these are like small kindergarten for children to just be kids, to play, to do some arts activities, music, drama, and to just have some sense of normalcy. And to be able to release their stress. We know from our experience working with trauma survivors around the world that kids, it's not easy for them to speak out, but when they're given the opportunity to let it out through arts, through games, they're able to release their stress. But not less important is to have a safe space for the kids so their parents could finally breathe. Now remember, we call this place a safe space. In Hebrew, it's called Makom Batuach. And the first thing the mothers told us, they said, you can't call this Makom Batuach. There is no Makom Batuach. There is no safe space right now. So we said, you know what? You're absolutely right. We're just going to call it a space. So we are operating 12 of these spaces right now with these kibbutzim and moshavim and the people of Ofakim and Sderot who lost everything. And we'll be there not only now, but we'll be there for as long as they need us, because unfortunately we know that trauma, the healing process will take years. Everyone calls it a generational trauma, and I think that's unfortunately fitting. So these people need our support and solidarity right now, but they will need it in a month from now, in 2 months from now, in 6 months, and in years to come as they struggle to recover. But before I finish, for us at Israel and for me personally, my life has always been about how to find opportunities in disasters and how to reach what I call post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic growth is this belief, is this hope that when things are at the bottom, we can not only bounce back, but we can actually bounce forward. And I've seen it time and time again. I've seen it in Japan after the tsunami, where because of our work on the ground, we were able to build a mental health support system that didn't exist before and is now helping people all over Asia. In the Syrian refugee crisis in Greece, I met a Syrian refugee after we pulled out his daughter from the water. He told me, my worst enemy became my biggest supporter. And the people who are supposed to protect me back home are chasing me away. We had an unbelievable bridge building with the people of Afghanistan when we pulled out 205 Afghans from the hands of the Taliban. What are the opportunities that can come out of such a terrible tragedy as we're experiencing right now? I don't know. But what I do know, and Rabbi Davidson talked about it a little bit, that what we're already seeing is the people of Israel coming together, putting aside all our differences, and God knows we have a lot of differences. Putting aside the political, judicial reforms and all those things that seem so far and so unimportant at this stage. So this is an opportunity for us to come together, not only in Israel, but between Israel and the Jewish people, and to rebuild and reconnect and strengthen the incredible bond between our people. And I want to finish with probably the most, maybe the only uplifting moment that I had in the last 4 weeks, which was on October 8th, a few hours after we found out about the massacre. I received a message from a dear friend of mine. His name is Ambassador Jawad. He was the Afghan ambassador in Washington. And when the Taliban took over Afghanistan, we worked with Ambassador Jawad to rescue 205 Afghan girls from the hands of the Taliban. Girls who suffered the worst atrocities from this barbaric regime. This is a story for another time, but this ambassador at some point helped us print passports for these girls. I was on the border between Afghanistan and Tajikistan with our team, and we smuggled these passports across the border in a story that puts Fauda to shame. So anyway, this is the message that I received from my friend Ambassador Jawad, an Afghan Muslim. He said, "Yotam, my friend, I'm writing with a very heavy heart to express my deepest condolences and profound sympathy for the recent barbaric terrorist attack in Israel. I hope your family, friends, and loved ones are safe. The news of the terrorists is devastating, and my thoughts have been with you and my friends in Israel during this difficult time. I personally feel the pain and grief as my own people have experienced the horrors of terrorism and barbarism for decades. I understand all too well the profound impact such acts of violence have on individuals, families, and communities. The strength and resilience of the Jewish community show the power of human spirit in the face of savagery and callousness. Please know that we are here for you as a friend and as someone who profoundly feels your pain. May the memories of the innocent victims be a blessing, and may their families find solace in the support of friends during this very difficult time. My thoughts and prayers are with you, with families of the victims, and all those affected by this terrible tragedy. With heartfelt sympathy and solidarity, Ambassador Jawad." So I want to just express my gratitude to you, to this amazing community who have been with us for so many years and helping us not only to save lives, which is our core mission, but also to change lives and to build bridges. And God knows we have so many bridges to build now more than ever. Toda rabba. Thank you.